After a year of marriage, my wife still wouldn't let me see her phone. When I finally asked why, she said, "Real men don't need passwords." That night while she slept, I checked her phone and discovered an entire folder of photos with her ex. I didn't wake her up, just packed a bag and left the wedding album on the kitchen table. She's been calling me nonstop ever since. Before we start, I just want to say thank you for being here. It means the world. But take a look at this. Only 8% of people watching are subscribed. If you enjoy these stories and want to support more of them, just one click makes a huge difference. I should have known something was off from the beginning. When I met Olivia at my cousin's wedding 2 years ago, she was charming, vivacious, and constantly checking her phone. I thought it was just a millennial thing. I'm 44, she's 36. Not a huge gap, but enough that our relationships with technology differ slightly. During our courtship, I never thought twice about her phone habits. She'd tilt the screen away when texting, change her password regularly, and keep it on silent, face down. I respected her privacy, never asked to see it, never showed any interest in who she was communicating with. I assumed this was normal in modern relationships. When we got married last year, I thought things would change naturally. They didn't. If anything, Olivia became more protective of her phone. It was never out of her sight. She'd take it to the bathroom during showers. She'd sleep with it next to her on the nightstand, always face down. Once, when I picked it up to move it while cleaning, she quickly came over to take it back. Still, I said nothing. I believed in trust, in giving each other space. I've never been the jealous type, never felt the need to monitor her communications or friendships. If she needed privacy, I was happy to give it to her. Until the passwords became a pattern in other areas of our lives. 6 months into our marriage, I asked for the login information to our joint bank account, which she had set up. "Why do you need it?" she asked, immediately defensive. I explained that I wanted to check our balance before making a large purchase for the house. She made me wait while she looked it up herself, then read the balance to me. Never gave me the login information. A month later, we needed to log into our shared cloud storage to retrieve some tax documents. Again, she insisted on doing it herself, refusing to share the login credentials. Despite these red flags, I maintained my composure. I'm a structural engineer by profession. I deal in facts, calculations, verifiable data. I noticed the inconsistencies in her behavior, but I didn't want to make accusations based on suspicions alone. However, I did begin to document these incidents, noting dates and circumstances. The breaking point came last week. My brother had been in a serious car accident, and I'd left my phone at home while rushing to the hospital. When I realized this, I asked to borrow Olivia's phone to call my sister for an update. "Just use the hospital phone," she said, her hand instinctively covering her device. "It's long distance," I explained. "Please, it'll just take a minute." She reluctantly handed it over. But only after quickly closing several apps, I saw her do this, and warning me not to snoop around. That night, after confirming my brother would recover, I finally asked the question that had been building for months. "Why won't you ever let me see your phone, or share any passwords with me?" She didn't look up from her screen. "I believe in privacy in relationships, even from your husband, even for shared accounts." She sighed dramatically, as if I was being unreasonable. "God, Marcus, real men don't need passwords. Real men trust their wives without invading their privacy." The words landed like a slap. Not because they hurt, but because of their practiced delivery, as if she'd used this line before, as if it was a prepared defense. I didn't press further that evening, but her words replayed in my mind as I tried to sleep. Real men don't need passwords. It wasn't about trust anymore. It was about manipulation. After careful consideration, and recognizing that our state is a no-fault divorce state, meaning evidence of infidelity wouldn't significantly impact proceedings, I decided I needed to know what I was dealing with. The fact that I didn't have access to our jointly owned accounts was concerning enough from a financial safety perspective. The next morning, I hired a private investigator to follow Olivia, explaining my concerns about potential infidelity and financial manipulation. While this was an expensive route, it felt more legally sound than attempting to access her private device without permission. Within a week, the PI had gathered substantial evidence. Olivia was indeed meeting regularly with her ex-boyfriend Ryan, who was separated from his wife, but not yet divorced. They had been seen entering hotels together during times Olivia had claimed to be at work conferences. The PI also documented them using my car, which explained the unexplained mileage I'd noticed recently. Most concerning, the PI managed to photograph them reviewing documents together in a coffee shop, documents that appeared to be financial in nature, with what looked like my name visible on some pages. Armed with this evidence, I contacted a lawyer who advised me on the proper steps to protect myself. With legal guidance, I did the following. 1. Requested and received login information for all joint financial accounts from our bank directly. As a joint account holder, I had every legal right to this information. 2. Documented that significant sums had been transferred from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize, approximately $2,000 monthly for the past 6 months. 3. With my lawyer present, I accessed these records and discovered Olivia had been diverting funds to a separate account in her name only. Following my lawyer's advice, I did not immediately confront Olivia. Instead, 1. Secured copies of all financial records. 2. Withdrew exactly half of the remaining joint funds to a new account in my name only, leaving detailed documentation of this transaction with my lawyer. 3. Secured my personal belongings and important documents. 4. Arranged temporary housing. On the day I planned to leave, I waited until Olivia left for her Pilates class. I left our wedding album on the kitchen table, open to a photo of us exchanging vows. On it, I placed my house key and a letter from my lawyer outlining that I was initiating divorce proceedings based on financial impropriety, with evidence of the diverted funds. I noted that I would be staying at a hotel temporarily, and all further communication should go through my attorney, whose contact information was provided. I checked into a hotel across town. By noon, my phone started blowing up with calls from Olivia. I didn't answer. Text messages followed. Where are you? Why did you take your things? What's going on? Call me right now. Each message more desperate than the last, but none acknowledging what she'd done. By evening, the tone had changed. Please come home so we can talk. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. I can explain everything. Please don't do this to us. I maintained my silence, following my lawyer's advice to avoid any communications that could be used against me later. The next day, my lawyer confirmed he'd contacted Olivia with formal notice of divorce proceedings, citing financial misconduct and including evidence of the diverted funds. That's when her messages became frantic. How dare you spy on me? Those transfers are not what you think. Ryan was just helping me with investments. You're overreacting. You had no right to invade my privacy. And finally, the most telling, you'll never find anyone like me. On that point at least, we agreed. By day 3, she'd recruited reinforcements. My phone showed missed calls from her parents, her sister, even my own mother. I spoke only to my mother, briefly explaining the situation and sharing some of the evidence. She was horrified but understood immediately why I'd left. Olivia showed up at my office that afternoon. My assistant, who knew about the situation, refused to let her in. She created such a scene that security had to escort her out. My coworkers witnessed the entire spectacle, her screaming that I was acting crazy and throwing away our marriage over nothing. That evening, I finally broke my silence with a single text. Contact will now be through our respective attorneys only. Her response was immediate. You're making a huge mistake. I was helping Ryan through his divorce. The money was just a loan. I almost laughed at the absurdity, the desperate lie. I didn't respond. On day 5, a large flower arrangement arrived at my office with a card pleading for a second chance. I donated the flowers to a nearby nursing home. On day 7, her father called, offering to mediate the situation. I politely declined, explaining that the evidence was unambiguous. Olivia made her choice. I told him, I'm simply protecting myself at this point. The most unexpected development came on day 10. Ryan's estranged wife, Angel, contacted me through my lawyer. She'd discovered the affair from her end and wanted to share information. We met in my lawyer's office to ensure everything was properly documented. Two strangers united by betrayal and shared what we knew. Turns out, Ryan and Olivia had reconnected 2 years ago, around the time Olivia and I were getting serious. They had been involved throughout my courtship and marriage to Olivia. Angela showed me text messages from Ryan's phone, which she had legal access to as it was a family plan in her name, where they discussed me, mocking my obliviousness, laughing about how I accepted Olivia's excuses without question. "He's so trusting, it's almost sad," Olivia had written. "Real men don't need passwords." Ryan had replied with a laughing emoji, an inside joke between them at my expense. "It's been 2 weeks now. The divorce proceedings are moving forward. Olivia has switched tactics from begging to threats, from threats to bargaining. Her latest offer, delivered through her attorney, she'll return the diverted funds if I promise not to share the real reason for our divorce with friends and family. She's worried about her reputation, about people discovering who she really is." I refused, not out of spite, but out of principle. I won't lie about what happened, won't manufacture a more palatable story to protect the woman who spent a year lying to my face. If she wanted privacy, she should have behaved privately. Yesterday, my personal belongings were delivered from our house, packed by a service I'd hired to avoid any interaction with Olivia. Among them was a small box containing items I hadn't packed. Birthday cards I'd given her, concert tickets from our dates, the watch I'd given her as a wedding gift. Her attempt at emotional manipulation, no doubt. At the bottom of the box was a handwritten letter, 10 pages of explanations, justifications, and pleas for understanding. I read it completely, as my lawyer advised documenting all communications, then provided it to him for the case file. The letter essentially admitted to the relationship with Ryan, but attempted to minimize it while simultaneously blaming me for not being emotionally available enough. Some people never take responsibility, even when confronted with irrefutable evidence of their actions. Some people will always make themselves the victim, even when they're the architect of the destruction. As for me, I'm staying in a furnished apartment until the divorce is finalized. I'm focusing on work, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during my marriage, and rebuilding the parts of myself that I compromised to accommodate Olivia's deceptions. "Real men don't need passwords," she said. "But real men do know when to walk away." Eat it, some clarifications based on comments. 1. Yes, I was within my legal rights to take half of our joint account. The account was specifically designated for household expenses to which we both contributed equally. My lawyer confirmed this was appropriate and documented the transaction properly. 2. For those asking why I hired a PI instead of confronting her first, when someone is being deceptive while hiding evidence, confrontation would have only given her time to delete evidence and craft better lies. I needed to know what I was dealing with from a legal perspective. 3. Several people have commented that Olivia might try to claim I abandoned the marriage. My lawyer assured me that with the documented evidence of financial impropriety and the proper notice I provided, this won't be an issue in our state's divorce proceedings. 4. No, I don't regret my approach to discovering the truth. Privacy is important in marriage, but so is honesty. When one partner is clearly hiding something consequential to the relationship and diverting shared finances, it becomes a legal as well as personal issue. 5. Angela and I are not dating, for those who asked. We've met twice in legal settings to share information relevant to our respective divorces. That's it. Update. 1 month later, the divorce process continues, but the emotional storm has somewhat calmed. Olivia has finally stopped trying to contact me directly and is working through her lawyer, as she should have been doing all along. An unexpected development. Ryan appears to have disappeared from Olivia's life completely. According to information revealed during divorce proceedings, he reconciled with his wife once the affair was exposed. Olivia is now telling people I was controlling and invasive, rewiring the narrative to cast herself as the victim. Few believe her, especially after the financial evidence came to light during the proceedings. I've settled into my new apartment, which feels more like home than our house ever did. There's something freeing about shedding a relationship built on deception. I've started rock climbing again, a hobby I'd given up during my marriage because Olivia found it boring, and reconnected with old friends. The most valuable lesson from all this? Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong consistently, it probably is. Real relationships don't need secrecy, manipulation, or the phrase, "real men don't need passwords." Final update 6 months later. The divorce was finalized last week. In the end, Olivia was ordered to return the diverted funds plus interest, and we divided our remaining assets according to state law. I've learned that she and Ryan briefly got back together after his wife filed for divorce, but it didn't last. According to mutual friends, he left her for someone else. Poetic justice, perhaps. As for me, I've purchased a cabin by the lake, something I'd always wanted but Olivia had dismissed as too rustic. I split my time between there and my city apartment. Work is going well. I was promoted to senior project manager last month. I've started dating again, cautiously. The woman I'm seeing now, a wildlife photographer I met on a hiking trail, handed me her phone on our third date to show me pictures she'd taken. When I commented on her lack of phone security, she shrugged and said, "I don't have anything to hide." It shouldn't have felt as significant as it did, but after Olivia, transparency feels like a gift. Not because I need her passwords, but because the absence of secrecy indicates the absence of deception. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can take from a broken relationship is the wisdom to recognize a whole one when you find it. I've been living a double life for years. My GF accidentally texted me, meant to send it to a friend. He has no idea I have another boyfriend in the city. A minute later, she followed up, "Sorry, my phone got hacked." I didn't argue, just said I believed her. For Valentine's Day, I booked us a romantic dinner at her favorite restaurant, the same one her other boyfriend was at with his wife. When she saw them across the room, her face went pale. She begged we leave, but I had other plans. Some people say ignorance is bliss. I say knowledge is power, especially when you're the only one who knows that you know. Megan and I had been together for 3 years. We met at a friend's wedding, started dating a month later, and settled into what I thought was a solid relationship. Not perfect. She traveled frequently for her consulting job, often spending 3 to 4 days a week in the city, about 2 hours from our suburb. But we made it work, or so I believed. The text came on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk, reviewing some code, when my phone lit up with a message from Megan. "I've been living a double life for years. He has no idea I have another boyfriend in the city. Sometimes I almost slip up and mention Robert, but Alex is too trusting to notice anything." I stared at the screen, blood rushing in my ears. Alex? That's me. Robert was someone I'd never heard of. Before I could even process this, another text arrived. "Sorry, my phone got hacked. Ignore that weird message. Someone's playing a prank." Right. Because hackers regularly send specific texts about affairs using people's real names and accurate relationship details. My first instinct was confrontation. Demand answers, scream, throw things. But something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice in my head said, "Verify first. Plan carefully. Don't show your hand." So I typed back, "No worries. Figured it wasn't meant for me. Hope they didn't access anything important." Her relief was almost palpable in her response. "Thanks for understanding. These hackers are getting crazy. I'll change my passwords." That night when she called from her hotel in the city, I acted completely normal. Asked about her day, told her about mine, said I missed her. The entire time, I was opening a new document on my laptop, creating a timeline of her travel patterns over the past year. The next morning, I began my investigation. Not with jealous rage or desperate stalking, but with methodical precision. First step. Verify Robert existed. I had never checked Megan's phone or social media before, trusted her completely. Now I logged into our shared laptop where her Facebook remained logged in. No Robert immediately visible in her friends, but in her message requests, multiple conversations with a Bobby Walker. Conversations that started innocently, then progressed to plans, hotel rooms, inside jokes. "Can't wait for Tuesday. Alex leaves for his conference and we have 3 days. Missing you. Just 2 more days until Alex goes to his mom's for the weekend. Got us reservations at Aspen for Valentine's. We deserve something special." Aspen, an upscale restaurant downtown, her supposed favorite that we'd never actually visited together because it was too expensive for regular dates. I took screenshots, then checked her Instagram. More evidence. Photos I recognized from her solo work trips showed subtle hints of another presence. 2 wine glasses in a hotel room reflection, a men's watch visible on a nightstand. Next, I searched for Robert Walker in the city. There weren't many, and only one seemed to fit, a finance executive at a well-known firm. His social media was semi-private, but his LinkedIn and company profile provided enough information. He was married, though his wife's name wasn't visible in the limited public information available. Through some creative searching and cross-referencing mutual connections, I discovered his wife was Catherine, and they had been married for 8 years based on company newsletter mentions of their anniversary. The pieces aligned perfectly. When I traveled, she was with him. When his wife posted about business trips on her public professional profile, he was with Megan. They'd created an intricate dance around their primary relationships, using our trust as cover for their affair. I considered my options. Confronting Megan would just lead to denial, tears, promises to change. Contacting Catherine directly seemed messy. Then I remembered. Valentine's Day was coming up, and based on their messages, they had reservations at Aspen. I called the restaurant, pretending to be Robert, confirming his reservation. Just double-checking my Valentine's Day reservation. Yes, Mr. Walker, we have you at 8:15 p.m. on the 14th. Table for 2. Perfect. I immediately booked a table for 8 p.m. under my name. For the next 2 weeks, I maintained absolute normalcy. Bought Megan flowers, planned our special Valentine's dinner, listened to her increasingly elaborate lies about her work schedule that conveniently cleared Valentine's evening. Not once did I let slip that I knew everything. When February 14th arrived, Megan was noticeably tense. She'd prepared her story carefully. She would work late but rush back for our 8 p.m. reservation, meeting me directly at the restaurant. I hate working on Valentine's Day, she pouted that morning. But I'll make it up to you tonight. Don't worry, I assured her. Tonight will be unforgettable. I arrived at Aspen at 7:45 p.m., dressed sharply in a tailored suit. I requested a table with a clear view of the entrance and explained to the host that I was planning a surprise for my girlfriend. I didn't elaborate on the nature of the surprise, just slipped him an extra $50 to ensure we'd be seated at my preferred table. At 8:10, a couple was led to a table across the dining room. A man matching Robert's LinkedIn photo, and a woman I presumed was Catherine. They were seated at an angle where they wouldn't immediately notice our table, but would be clearly visible to anyone sitting where Megan would be. At 8:15, Megan arrived looking stunning in a red dress I'd never seen before. She kissed me, apologized for being caught in traffic, then followed the host to our table. I watched her face carefully as we approached our seats. 3, 2, 1. Her step faltered. The blood drained from her face as she spotted Robert and Catherine across the room. For a split second, pure panic flashed in her eyes before she regained composure. Something wrong? I asked innocently. No, just, thought I recognized someone from work. Let's request another table. The draft from that door is terrible. We can't move, I said calmly. I specifically requested this table for the view. Trust me. She sat down reluctantly, positioning herself to keep her back to Robert's table. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the menu, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. You look nervous, I observed. Everything okay at work? Fine, just busy. You know how it is. I nodded sympathetically, then excused myself to the restroom. On my way, I made a detour to the Walker table, where Robert was mid-story with his wife. Excuse me, I said. Are you Robert Walker? He looked up, confused but professional. Yes, that's me. I'm Alex, Megan's boyfriend. I extended my hand, the color drained from his face. His wife looked between us, confusion dawning. I think we should talk, I said. All of us. Catherine's eyes narrowed. All of us? Yes, my girlfriend, Robert's girlfriend, is sitting right over there. I pointed to our table where Megan was anxiously checking her phone. Robert started stammering excuses, but Catherine was already standing, scanning the room. When she spotted Megan, her expression hardened. Wait, I recognize her from Robert's company event photos. She's introduced herself as his colleague. Catherine's voice was ice cold. The consultant who's always coincidentally in town when I'm traveling. I led them to our table. Megan was checking her phone when she heard approaching footsteps. She looked up, then froze completely. A statue of betrayal caught in the spotlight. Robert? She whispered. Catherine? What's? Surprise, I said, taking my seat. I thought we should all have dinner together, since we're practically family at this point. Our server appeared, professional but clearly sensing the tension. Shall I bring 2 more place settings? That would be perfect, I replied. And maybe some champagne? We're having a reunion of sorts. What followed was the most excruciating, captivating dinner of my life. Catherine, bless her, recovered quickly from the shock and transformed into an interrogator that would make federal agents envious. "So how long?" she demanded. Neither Megan nor Robert answered. "Fine, I'll ask Alex. How long have they been sleeping together?" "Based on my research, at least a year, possibly longer," I supplied, though there are gaps in my intelligence. Megan found her voice. "Alex, please, we need to talk privately. This isn't what it looks like," I finished. "Because it looks like you've been lying to my face for years while building a relationship with a married man. It looks like you've been using my trust to facilitate your affair. It looks like you two have been playing us for fools." Robert finally spoke. "We can discuss this like adults. There's no need to make a scene." "There's no scene," I said. "Just four adults having dinner. Though I should mention that I've taken the liberty of ordering champagne. We are celebrating, after all." "Celebrating what?" Catherine asked darkly. "The end of lies, the beginning of clarity." The champagne arrived. I raised my glass. "To truth, however ugly, however painful, it sets us free." Megan tried once more. "Alex, just let me explain. The text wasn't meant for me, right? Your phone was hacked? Which is it, Megan?" "Because both can't be true." She stared at her plate, defeated. Catherine turned to her husband. "And you? 8 years of marriage thrown away for what? Hotel room rendezvous and secret dinners?" Robert looked genuinely pained. "Cat, it just happened. I was going to end it." "When?" Catherine and I asked simultaneously. The dinner continued in this vein for almost an hour. Other diners pretended not to watch the drama unfolding. The staff maintained heroic professionalism. By dessert, everything was in the open. The timeline of their affair, the elaborate lies they'd constructed, the future they'd tentatively planned together. Finally, I signaled for the bill. "I've already taken care of our portion," I told the server, handing him my credit card. "They can handle theirs separately." Megan grabbed my arm as I stood up. "Please, we can work through this. I made a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or buying the wrong gift," I said quietly. "This was a deliberate choice you made every day for years." I turned to Catherine. "It was a pleasure meeting you, despite the circumstances." She nodded, a new resolve in her eyes. "Likewise, thank you for your directness." I walked out alone, leaving the three of them to sort out their own endings. In the parking lot, I took my first full breath in weeks. It tasted like freedom. Megan came by our apartment the next day, tears streaming down her face. She alternated between begging forgiveness and accusing me of deliberately humiliating her. She tried calling repeatedly that night after I asked her to leave, sending dozens of texts oscillating between apologies and anger. I didn't block her number, wanted to preserve every message as evidence of her instability. But I stopped responding after telling her clearly, "I need you to move your things out by next weekend." She moved out the following Saturday, her mother helping her pack while shooting me daggers. I stayed silent, documenting everything in case she tried to claim I'd mistreated her during the breakup. I heard through our mutual friend Claire that Robert and Catherine were in counseling, attempting to salvage their marriage. Not my circus, not my monkeys. 6 months later, I received a letter from Megan in the mail. No return address, but her handwriting was unmistakable. I read it carefully, absorbing her explanations, justifications, and pleas for closure. Then I filed it away without responding. Some chapters don't need an epilogue. People say living well is the best revenge. I say the best revenge is whatever liberates you from lies, whether that's a quiet exit or a public reckoning. I chose the option that made the truth undeniable, that prevented further manipulation, that closed the door so firmly it could never be reopened. Some might call it petty or theatrical. I call it necessary clarity. Sometimes the only way out of deception is through the brightest spotlight you can find. Update 10 months later. Since many asked for an update, here's where things stand. Life has normalized in ways I wouldn't have thought possible the night of that Valentine's dinner. I've moved to a new place closer to my office, reconnected with friends who got sidelined during my relationship with Megan, even started dating again cautiously. The most unexpected development came 3 months ago when Catherine reached out through Claire, our mutual friend. We met for coffee, strictly platonic, as she and Robert were in the final stages of their divorce despite his efforts at reconciliation. She wanted to thank me for my approach to exposing the affair. Most people would have just told me privately or confronted them separately, she said. Your method left no room for them to manipulate the narrative. She's since become a casual friend. We meet occasionally to compare notes on recovery and moving forward. There's something uniquely bonding about surviving the same betrayal. As for the main players, Robert was apparently demoted at work after the scandal affected a client relationship. Catherine had more social connections in their industry than he'd calculated. Actions, consequences. Megan, according to Claire, moved to the city permanently. She's been telling people she ended things with me because I was controlling. When someone mentions her hacked text message, Claire made sure that screenshot circulated. That narrative crumbles quickly. The restaurant Aspen has become something of an inside joke among my friends. One of them made me a custom gift card to the place for my birthday with "drama not included" printed on it. For those asking if I regret the public confrontation, not for a second. Private confrontations allow liars to continue lying. Public ones force reality to the surface. Could I have handled it differently? Sure. Would it have been as effective? Doubtful. Some readers suggested I should have just walked away quietly, that the elaborate setup was unnecessary. To them I say, 3 years of my life were stolen through systematic deception. My exit needed to be definitive enough to prevent any possibility of her manipulating me further. The most valuable lesson from all this? Trust your instincts, verify your suspicions, and when it's time to act, do so with absolute clarity of purpose. Emotional reactions give manipulators leverage. Strategic responses leave them powerless. I've been asked if I have trust issues now. Of course I do. But I'm working on distinguishing between healthy skepticism and paralyzing suspicion. The former protects you, the latter prevents you from living. For those in similar situations wondering, what would this guy do? I don't recommend my exact approach unless you're absolutely certain of the facts and emotionally prepared for the fallout. But I do recommend refusing to let someone who betrayed you control the narrative of how things end. Lastly, to the person who asked if I'd have handled things differently if Megan had been truly remorseful immediately after the accidental text, probably not. Real remorse would have meant confessing everything right then, not inventing a hacking story and continuing the deception. By the time I discovered the truth, honesty was no longer on the table as an option. Life continues, better than before, with clearer boundaries and sharper instincts. The dinner that ended everything also began something new, a life without compromise on the things that matter most. Honesty, respect, and the courage to face truth even when it arrives on the most romantic night of the year. After 12 years of marriage, I found my wife's old diary, filled with pages about her ex. One entry said, "He'll never know I named our son after you." When I confronted her, she smirked and said, "It's just a name. Don't be so dramatic." So I ordered a paternity test. 3 days later, I left the results and her diary on her parents' porch. She's been calling me every night since. I never believed I'd be posting about my failed marriage, but when your entire life turns out to be built on lies, you need somewhere to vent. All names used are placeholders for obvious reasons. 1 month ago, I discovered my 12-year marriage was a complete fraud, all because of a leather-bound journal hidden in our attic. I'm 43, run my own architecture firm. My soon-to-be ex-wife Lisa is 41, teaches high school English. There's also an 11-year-old boy named Ethan, who I was fooled into believing was my son. But I'll get to that. Last month, while Lisa was at a teacher's conference and Ethan was at baseball, I was cleaning the attic of my house, a property I bought and paid for before we got married, with clear documentation proving it's separate property. I found a box labeled "Personal, Do Not Open," hidden behind some Christmas decorations. In my own damn house, a box I'm not supposed to open? That raised immediate red flags. Inside was a journal. When I opened it, a photo fell out. Lisa wrapped around some guy I'd never seen before, looking all lovey-dovey on a beach. On the back, "Forever yours, M." The journal was filled with entries about this guy Michael, mostly from before we met. Then I found an entry dated right after Ethan was born. "He's perfect." Looking at him reminds me so much of you. That's why I chose your name for him, Michael Ethan. Robert thinks we're just using your middle name because I like how it sounds. He'll never know I named our son after you. A little piece of you I get to keep forever." I read it multiple times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. But it was crystal clear. The boy I'd raised for 11 years was named after some ex-boyfriend I'd never even heard of, and the entry strongly suggested Ethan wasn't even mine. When Lisa got home Sunday night, I waited until Ethan was asleep before confronting her. I put the journal on the kitchen table. "What's this doing out?" she asked, face draining of color. "Who's Michael?" I asked flatly. She hesitated, then shrugged. "An ex from college, ancient history." "Is Ethan named after him?" Instead of looking guilty or apologetic, she actually smirked. "It's just a name, Robert. Don't be so dramatic." That smirk told me everything I needed to know about our marriage. "Is he Ethan's biological father?" "What? No. How could you even ask that?" "Because of what you wrote about Michael Ethan, about keeping a piece of him forever. You're taking that completely out of context. So I dated a guy named Michael whose middle name was Ethan, so I liked the name. It doesn't mean anything." "Did you sleep with him around the time Ethan was conceived?" She stood up, knocking her chair over. "I'm not having this conversation. You're being ridiculous." "Answer the question, Lisa." "No. I haven't even seen Michael since before I met you." The vehement denial might have convinced me once. Not anymore. "I want a paternity test." "Absolutely not," she snapped. "I'm not putting our son through that just because you're paranoid about an old journal." I didn't argue further, just walked away and slept in the guest room. Next morning, I called my lawyer, then ordered a home paternity test kit online. Getting Ethan's DNA was simple. I told him I needed to swab his cheek for a school science project. 3 days later, I had the results. Ethan is not my biological son. I wasn't even surprised at this point. Just cold and determined. I made copies of the key journal pages and the test results, put the originals in a large envelope, and drove to Lisa's parents' house. Left it on their porch with a note. "Your daughter has been lying to me for 12 years. Ethan is not my biological son. Ask her about Michael." Then I checked into a hotel, turned off my phone, and met with my lawyer to discuss how to completely destroy Lisa in the divorce. When I turned my phone back on 2 days later, I had 47 missed calls. Most from Lisa, but also from her parents and even my own parents, who she'd tried to pull into her drama. I only responded to my parents, telling them I was handling the situation my way. I listened to one voicemail from Lisa. "Robert, please, I can explain everything. It's not what you think. Come home so we can talk. Ethan's asking for you." I texted back, "I'll only communicate through my lawyer from now on. This is my house, which I owned before our marriage with documented proof. You have 30 days to vacate per state law." The truth emerged fast after that. Michael had contacted Lisa right before our wedding. They met up during her bachelorette weekend in Vegas and slept together. When she discovered she was pregnant 6 months into our marriage, she knew it might be his, but decided to pass the child off as mine. She never told Michael about the pregnancy and never told me about him. Her parents were shocked. Her father called me. "I don't know what to say, Robert." I had no idea she was capable of something like this. I filed for divorce immediately. Also filed a petition to disestablish paternity, providing the DNA evidence and proof of fraud to have my name removed from Ethan's birth certificate. My lawyer assured me this was legally sound, given the evidence of deliberate deception. Hard decision? Actually, it wasn't. For 11 years, I'd been manipulated into raising another man's child. That's not noble. That's being played for a fool. Lisa chose to vacate the house before the 30-day period ended, realizing she had no legal right to remain. I returned to my house after confirming she had left. Changed all the locks, security codes, everything. Walking through those rooms, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. She thought she'd played me for over a decade, but in the end, she was the one left with nothing. It's been 3 months now. The divorce is nearly finalized. Lisa had the nerve to demand half of my assets and alimony. My lawyer shut that down fast with the evidence of her infidelity and fraud. In our state, adultery that results in a child conceived during marriage is considered extreme marital misconduct. The court ruled that my premarital assets, including the house, remained separate property, and the division of marital assets was adjusted in my favor due to her misconduct. My petition to disestablish paternity was successful. With DNA evidence proving non-paternity and clear documentation of Lisa's fraud, the court removed me from Ethan's birth certificate. The judge explicitly ruled that I have no legal or financial obligation toward a child that is not biologically mine, and that I was deceived into raising. Lisa still calls from new numbers every night, alternating between sobbing apologies and threats. I've documented every call as evidence of harassment. Her mother told me last week that they found Michael through social media. When confronted, he confirmed he's Ethan's biological father, then immediately signed papers acknowledging paternity but waiving custodial rights. Didn't even want to meet the kid. The court has ordered him to pay child support regardless of his interest in parenting, another legal hit to Lisa's financial situation. Lisa and Ethan are now living in a small apartment paid for by her parents. Her teaching salary barely covers the basics after her extravagant spending habits. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying the peace and quiet of my house, focusing on my business, which has landed 2 major contracts since all this went down. Funny how much more productive you can be when you're not wasting energy on people who don't deserve it. Some might question why I cut Ethan off completely. Simple. I refuse to be manipulated any longer. Staying in his life would mean regular contact with Lisa, continued financial support for her lies, and a lifetime of being reminded how thoroughly I was deceived. That's not happening. He has a mother and a biological father, even if that father wants nothing to do with him. Not my problem anymore. Some might question why I sent the evidence to her parents. Simple. I needed witnesses to the truth. I needed people who mattered to Lisa to know exactly what kind of person she is. I make no apologies for that decision. Actions have consequences, and Lisa's actions destroyed our marriage and any responsibility I had toward her or Ethan. The divorce will be finalized next month. I'm rebuilding my life on my terms. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just enjoying the company of honest women who actually respect men. I'm traveling more, investing in my business, and planning a future that's completely free of Lisa's manipulation. When people ask if I miss being a father, I tell them the truth. I was never a father. I was a walking ATM and babysitter for another man's child. The disgusting part is that Lisa knew this the entire time, smirked about it when confronted, and expected me to just accept it. Update: 1 month later. This post blew up more than expected. Thanks for the support. The divorce is final. I got everything I wanted and then some. Lisa tried playing hardball about financial support, thinking she could manipulate the court with stories about Ethan losing his father figure. Big mistake. The judge took one look at the evidence of her deception and awarded me a complete separation. No obligations whatsoever toward Lisa or Ethan. For those asking about child support, no, I'm not paying it, and legally can't be forced to. The court officially disestablished my paternity based on the DNA evidence and proof of fraud. The judge ruled it would be fundamentally unjust to require financial support under these circumstances. Lisa's lawyer actually had the balls to request it initially, but shut up real quick when my lawyer outlined the full extent of her fraud. To answer the most common questions: 1. No, I haven't seen or spoken to Ethan since I left. Some call that cold. I call it self-respect. I wish the kid well, but he's not my responsibility or problem. 2. Many asked why I went to her parents first. Because I wanted the truth to come from an unimpeachable source before Lisa could spin her lies. It worked perfectly. Her parents were so disgusted they didn't even try to defend her. 3. To those suggesting I should maintain a relationship with Ethan, would you volunteer to support another man's child for the next 7+ years after being deceived for 11? Would you sign up for regular interaction with a woman who lied to your face for over a decade? Didn't think so. 4. For the guys messaging about similar situations, stand your ground. Document everything. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment, and never ever allow yourself to be manipulated by appeals to do what's best for the child. What's best is for children to be raised by their actual parents, not men deceived into thinking they're fathers. 5. No, I don't feel guilty. Not even a little. I gave 11 years of my life to a lie. That's more than enough. Lisa tried reaching out through mutual friends last week, claiming Ethan is traumatized by my absence and acting out at school. Not my circus, not my monkeys. She created this situation with her lies, and now she can deal with the fallout. Her parents have actually apologized to me multiple times. They've even offered financial assistance to make things right. I declined. I don't need or want their money. Her father told me, "You've handled this with more dignity than most men would. Lisa has to live with what she's done." I've started seeing someone new, a business owner I met at a conference. She's smart, honest, and most importantly, respects men and understands boundaries. We're taking things slow, but it's refreshing to be with someone who doesn't view me as a resource to be exploited. My house is now completely remodeled, erased every trace of Lisa and the life I thought I had. Sold all the furniture we bought together, repainted every room, even renovated the master bathroom she'd been nagging me about for years. Some people have called me heartless for my clean break. But here's the thing. Staying would have been the real weakness. Continuing to raise another man's child out of some misplaced sense of obligation? That's being a doormat, not a man of principle. I chose self-respect over self-sacrifice. I chose truth over comfortable lies, and I've never been more at peace with a decision in my life. Eat it. To the person who messaged saying I'm punishing an innocent child, no, I'm refusing to continue being manipulated. There's a difference. Lisa punished that child by lying about his paternity for 11 years. Direct your outrage at her. It was just once. You're overreacting, she said, when I caught her with someone else. He actually knows what he's doing in bed. I didn't argue, just walked out. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my job crying after finding out he gave her an STD. Some lessons in life cost more than others. For my ex Vanessa, that lesson came in the form of a prescription and a whole lot of regret. I'm not the type to air dirty laundry, but this story needs telling, not because I'm proud of how it ended, but because sometimes karma does the work for you. I'm Carter, 29, head chef at Ember, one of the most popular restaurants in our mid-sized city. I worked my way up from line cook over 7 years. No culinary school, just pure grit and an obsessive attention to detail. The hours are long, the work is demanding, but I love what I do. The kitchen is my domain, the one place where I have complete control and respect. I met Vanessa at the restaurant. She wasn't a regular customer. She was the event coordinator for a local tech company booking their holiday party. From the first planning meeting, there was a spark. She was gorgeous, tall, dark hair, killer smile. But what got me was her confidence and quick wit. By the end of that first meeting, we'd already shifted from professional to flirtatious. After the successful event, I asked her out. Our first date turned into a weekend-long adventure, and within 2 months, she had a drawer at my place. By 6 months, she was practically living there, though she kept her apartment for work purposes, since it was closer to her office. Things were good. Great, even. She understood my crazy schedule, and I respected her ambition. We traveled when we could, cooked together on my rare days off, and built what I thought was a solid foundation. Then came my birthday. I'd arranged to take a rare Saturday night off so we could celebrate. The reservation was set for 8 p.m. at Luciano's, the upscale Italian place across town that I'd been wanting to try. I left work early at 5, excited to have an actual evening out like a normal couple. When I got home, Vanessa wasn't there. No big deal. She was probably running late at work or getting ready at her place. I texted her, "Hey, I'm home. Are we meeting at Luciano's or are you coming here first?" No response. I showered and dressed, checking my phone every few minutes. By 7:15, still nothing. I called straight to voicemail. I started to worry something had happened, so I used the location sharing app we'd set up for safety when traveling. The map showed her at her apartment. Relief washed over me. She was fine, probably just getting ready and lost track of time. I decided to head over and surprise her, maybe even help her finish getting ready so we wouldn't miss our reservation. I still had a key to her place. We'd exchanged keys months ago. When I arrived, I heard music playing inside. I unlocked the door, calling out, "Vanessa? You ready? We need to." I stopped mid-sentence. There on her couch was Vanessa, partially dressed, straddling a guy I'd never seen before. They both froze, heads whipping toward me in perfect synchronization. Time seemed to stand still for a moment, then Vanessa scrambled off him, adjusting her clothes. "Carter, what are you doing here?" Her voice was high-pitched, panicky. "It's my birthday. We have reservations at Luciano's, remember?" My voice sounded strangely calm to my own ears. The guy, bearded, tattooed, looking like a wannabe rock star, grabbed his shirt from the floor. "I'm gonna go." "No," I said, still eerily calm. "I'm going. You two carry on." Vanessa rushed toward me. "Carter, wait. This isn't what it looks like." I finished for her. "Pretty sure it's exactly what it looks like." "It was just once," she said, her eyes pleading. "You're overreacting." I raised an eyebrow, waiting for her to realize what she'd just admitted. Instead, she dug herself deeper. "It doesn't mean anything. We've been having problems and you're always working in problems?" This was news to me. "What problems?" She hesitated, then looked back at the guy who was awkwardly putting on his shoes. "You wouldn't understand. It's just different with him. He actually knows what he's doing in bed." The guy had the decency to look embarrassed. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw things, didn't make a scene. I simply nodded, turned around, and walked out, closing the door quietly behind me. My phone started buzzing with texts before I even reached my car. "Carter, please come back. We need to talk about this. It was a mistake. Don't throw away what we have." I turned off my phone, drove to a bar I'd never been to before, and ordered a whiskey. The bartender took one look at my face and left the bottle. By midnight, I'd made some decisions. I wasn't going to beg, wasn't going to fight for someone who didn't value what we had, wasn't going to be plan B while she explored her options. When I got home, I packed up all of Vanessa's things from my apartment. It didn't take long. Mostly clothes, toiletries, a few books. I put everything in 3 neat boxes, including the key to my place. Since her luxury apartment building had a concierge service, one of the perks she'd mentioned when explaining why she kept the place, I dropped the boxes off with the concierge the next morning on my way to work, asking him to notify Miss Riley that a delivery had arrived. He assured me he'd handle it professionally. Then I blocked her number, removed her from my social media, and threw myself into my job. New menu items, staff training, inventory optimization, anything to keep my mind occupied. For a week, I barely thought about her. My staff noticed the change in my mood, but were smart enough not to ask. I stayed later than usual, came in earlier, and took fewer breaks. The restaurant's owner noticed and complimented my dedication, unaware it was just emotional avoidance. The following weekend, I threw myself into developing new menu items for our seasonal change, spending all of Saturday experimenting in the kitchen. On Monday morning, our general manager mentioned that Vanessa had called the restaurant twice, asking for me. I told him I wasn't interested in speaking with her. 10 days after the incident, Vanessa showed up at Ember during pre-dinner prep. I was in the kitchen when one of the servers came back, looking uncomfortable. "Chef, there's someone asking for you out front. We open in an hour. Tell them to come back." "It's Vanessa. She seems pretty upset." I put down my knife and wiped my hands. "Take over the sauce reduction," I told my sous chef, then headed to the front of the restaurant. Vanessa was sitting at the bar, fidgeting with a napkin. When she saw me, she stood up, and I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged. "You need to get tested?" she blurted out before I could say anything. I immediately glanced around to see if anyone could hear us. Though the restaurant was empty of customers, several staff members were within earshot. I gestured toward the door. "Let's step outside," I said firmly, not wanting this conversation to happen where my team could overhear. Once we were outside on the relatively quiet sidewalk, I turned to her. "What's going on?" "That guy, Jordan, he gave me something." She lowered her voice. "Chlamydia. I just found out yesterday." I kept my expression neutral, processing this information. "And you came here to tell me this, during my work hours?" "I tried calling. You blocked my number. I went to your apartment, but you weren't home. I didn't know how else to reach you." She was on the verge of tears again. "I'm so sorry, Carter. I made a horrible mistake." "Just once, right?" I couldn't help the sarcasm. She looked down. "I deserved that." "Did you get treatment?" I asked, my voice neutral. She nodded. "Yesterday. The doctor said I need to inform any recent partners." "Partner," I corrected. "Singular. Unlike some people, I don't sleep around." She winced. Carter, please. Can we talk about this? About us? I miss you. What I did was stupid and selfish, and I regret it more than you can imagine. I appreciate you letting me know about the health situation, I said formally. I'll get tested. Is there anything else? That's it? After 8 months together, that's all you have to say? I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I thought I knew. The woman I'd planned a future with. The woman who'd cheated on me, insulted me, and now brought a medical crisis to my workplace. What do you want me to say, Vanessa? That I forgive you? That we can start over? That I'm not bothered by the fact that you cheated on me, told me I wasn't good enough in bed, and now you've potentially given me an STD? I didn't mean what I said, she cried. I was embarrassed and trying to justify my behavior. You're amazing in bed. Jordan was terrible, actually. It was awkward and over in minutes. I don't know why I said that. A few staff members were pretending not to listen from the dining area. I gestured toward the front door, and we stepped outside. Look, I said once we were on the sidewalk, I've got a restaurant to run. I appreciate the health warning, but this isn't the place for this conversation. So you'll talk to me somewhere else? Hope flashed in her eyes. No, there's nothing to talk about. We're done. Carter, please. Everyone makes mistakes. True. And everyone has to live with the consequences of those mistakes. So that's it? One mistake and it's over? I sighed. It wasn't just the cheating, Vanessa. It was the casual cruelty afterward. It was the fact that you only came clean about it after getting caught. It was the disrespect of showing up at my job with this. Some things can't be fixed with an apology. What if I told you I think I'm in love with you? Her voice was small, desperate. I'd say your timing is terrible. I turned to go back inside, but she grabbed my arm. Can I at least know if you're okay? If you're infected too? I'll make an appointment with my doctor, but since you were my only partner, if I have it, I know exactly where it came from. Her face crumpled. I really am sorry, Carter. I believe you, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. I went back inside, instructed the host not to let her in if she returned, and immersed myself in dinner service. Following my doctor's advice, I waited the recommended time for accurate testing, about a week after potential exposure, before getting tested. My doctor explained that testing too early could result in a false negative, since the infection might not be detectable yet. The results came back negative about a week later. I was clean, physically at least. Emotionally was another story. Vanessa continued to try to contact me for a few weeks. Emails, messages through mutual friends, even a handwritten letter delivered to my apartment. Each attempt became more desperate, more dramatic. She'd made a terrible mistake. She'd never felt this way about anyone. She'd do anything for another chance. I didn't respond to any of it. A month after our breakup, I heard she'd been fired from her job. Apparently, she'd been dating her boss, the married CEO of the tech company, on and off for over a year. The same CEO who attended the holiday party where we met. The STD situation had blown up their affair, leading to an HR investigation. According to my source, a bartender friend who served several of the company's employees, the company had a strict policy requiring disclosure of workplace relationships to HR. When the CEO's wife found out about both the affair and the STD, she contacted the board of directors directly. After a formal review process, both Vanessa and the CEO were terminated. Him for abuse of power and failure to disclose the relationship, her for violating company policy. When I heard that news, something clicked into place. The problems she'd mentioned. The apartment she kept for work purposes, despite it being significantly more expensive than necessary. The late nights and occasional unexplained absences when she claimed to be working on special projects with the executive team. She hadn't just cheated on me with Jordan, she'd been cheating the entire time we were together. I dodged more than just an STD. I'd escaped a relationship built entirely on lies. 6 months later, I was promoted to executive chef when my boss decided to open a second location. The increased responsibility and creative freedom helped me rebuild my confidence and move forward. I dated casually, but kept things light, not quite ready to trust someone fully again. Then I met Elise, a food photographer assigned to shoot our new menu for a magazine feature. Smart, talented, straightforward, everything Vanessa wasn't. We've been taking things slow, but for the first time since the breakup, I'm genuinely excited about the possibilities. Last week, I ran into Jordan at a local brewery. He recognized me immediately and looked like he wanted to disappear. I was surprised he knew who I was, but then remembered that our mutual friend group had several overlapping connections on social media. Vanessa had probably shown him my photos, or he'd seen me in her Instagram posts from before everything went down. "Hey, man," he said awkwardly. "I didn't know she had a boyfriend. When I found out, I never saw her again. For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I nodded, appreciating the unexpected apology. "Did you know about her boss too?" His eyes widened. "Her what?" I just shook my head. "Forget it. We both dodged a bullet." He raised his glass to that, and I returned to my friends without another word. Sometimes the best revenge isn't anything you do yourself. It's stepping back and letting someone's own choices catch up with them. Vanessa lost her job, her reputation, her health temporarily, and the CEO she was probably planning to upgrade to all along. Me? I kept my dignity, my health, my career, and eventually my ability to trust again. I'd say I came out ahead in the end, and that's a dish best served not cold, but with perfect timing. After a year together, she smirked and said, "I was just using you to make my ex jealous. He finally came back, so we're done." I didn't argue. I even helped her load the boxes into his car and slipped in a little gift she didn't notice. Screenshots of her messages about him. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my door crying that he'd left her. We were just sitting on the couch after dinner, watching some show I can't even remember, and she looked over at me with this weird, satisfied look on her face. After a year together, she just dropped it on me. "I was just using you to make my ex jealous. He finally came back, so we're done." Just like that, I didn't yell. I didn't even really feel surprised. It was more like I'd been hearing a rattling noise in my car for months and the engine finally died. It wasn't a shock, it just confirmed what I already knew deep down. Her ex, David, came up in conversation way too much. She was always cagey about who she was texting, tilting her phone away from me. I'd put the pieces together a long time ago, but I guess I was waiting for her to show her hand. I just didn't expect her to be so proud of it. "Okay," I said. "That's it. Just one word." She looked thrown by that. I think she was expecting a big scene, maybe some begging, something she could use as a final story to tell her friends. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. "So when's he coming to get you?" She blinked and the grin on her face tightened a little. She wasn't in control of the reaction, and it bothered her. "He'll be here in an hour. I've got to pack my stuff." "I'll help," I told her, getting up from the couch. And that's when the plan formed in my head. It wasn't some crazy complicated thing. It was simple, and she was going to help me do it. You see, Sarah was sloppy. She was so sure I was clueless that she'd leave her laptop open on the coffee table when she went to the bathroom. She'd leave her phone lying face up while she was in the kitchen. She was constantly messaging her best friend, Megan, and I saw it all. I wasn't trying to spy, I swear, but she made it impossible not to. A text would pop up on the screen, my name would be in it, and I'd see it out of the corner of my eye. So for the past few months, I'd been taking screenshots. I went into my office while she started throwing her clothes into boxes, not bothering to fold anything. I had a folder on my computer desktop. I just called it Stuff. Inside were dozens of pictures of her chats with Megan. There were the messages where she called David a pathetic loser for still being in love with her after she dumped him. There were the ones making fun of how he wasn't great in bed, with little jokes about his stamina that she clearly thought were hilarious. She mocked his new apartment, calling it a sad little shoebox and saying he probably couldn't afford anything better. But the real gems, the ones that made my stomach turn, were the messages where she laid out her whole plan. Use the nice, stable guy, that's me, to make David jealous enough to take her back. She had a whole timeline. She wrote, "Another 6 months with the boring guy should do it. David is almost at the breaking point." I printed everything. 22 pages of her own words, her own casual cruelty. I put them in a neat stack and slipped them into a plain brown envelope. I didn't even seal it. I wanted it to look like it was just some papers he'd left in his car. When I walked back into the living room, she was humming while taping up a box. She was happy, genuinely happy to be leaving me. I just grabbed a roll of packing tape and started sealing the boxes she'd filled. The silence in the apartment was heavy, but it wasn't awkward. It was just over. An hour later, a horn honked outside. She ran to the window like a kid hearing the ice cream truck. "He's here," she said, grabbing her purse. I picked up the first 2 boxes and headed for the door. "All right, let's get you moved out." David was leaning against a nice-looking car, much nicer than my beat-up truck. He gave me a hard look, trying to look tough. He was the guy who won, in his mind. I didn't care. I wasn't his problem. I was about to do him the biggest favor of his life. We made a few trips back and forth, loading her stuff into his trunk. Sarah was in full-on director mode, telling me to be careful with one box, telling David to shove another one further in. I just played the part of the helpful, compliant ex-boyfriend. On the last trip, I had the lightest box and the envelope tucked under my arm. While David was busy trying to get the last box to fit in his trunk, and Sarah had run back inside to do one last check for her phone charger, I made my move. I walked over to the driver's side door, which he'd left open. David had his back to me, focused on the trunk. I reached in and slid the envelope of papers into the driver's side sun visor. I pushed it up and it was hidden, but I knew he'd find it. It's automatic. The sun gets in your eyes on the drive home. You flip the visor down. It was a ticking time bomb, and the timer had started. I stepped away from the car just as Sarah came bouncing out of the building. She gave me one last look, a mix of pity and dismissal. "No hard feelings, right?" "Nope," I said. "Good luck with everything." She got in the car without another word, and they drove off. I didn't watch them go. I just went back inside my apartment and slid the deadbolt across. It was finally quiet. The next 2 days were all about reclaiming my space. I changed the sheets on the bed, threw out all her half-used toiletries from the bathroom, and rearranged the living room furniture back to the way I liked it. It felt good. The bomb went off 3 days later. I got a friend request on social media from David. I accepted, and a message came through immediately. "Hey, I know this is weird, but can I call you? I need to thank you." I sent him my number, and my phone rang less than a minute later. "Man, thank you," was the first thing he said. He sounded completely stunned. "I found your gift yesterday." Sun was in my eyes on my way home from work. I pulled down the visor, and a ton of papers just fell all over my lap. I pulled over and read every single one. He told me he saw it all. The messages about him being pathetic, the jokes about his apartment, the crude comments about their past, the entire detailed plan to use me to get to him. He said he felt sick to his stomach. He walked inside his apartment, found Sarah unpacking her boxes and humming, and just tossed the papers on the table in front of her. He said she tried to deny it, of course. She said I was a psycho and that I had faked all of it to ruin her life. But he said the messages were so specific, so much in her voice, with details only she would know, that he knew they were real. Then she started crying. She said she only wrote those things because she was hurt and missed him so much. She tried to make it about him, saying he shouldn't believe some papers over her. But he said it wasn't just the insults. It was seeing how calculated and cold she was. He wasn't a person to her. He was an object, a prize to be won back to prove a point. He told her to pack her boxes back up. He said she started screaming then, saying he was ruining their second chance over some stupid messages. He told me he just pointed to the stack of papers and said, "The guy you called a pathetic loser is kicking you out of his sad little shoebox." He actually used her own words against her. He put her boxes in the hallway outside his apartment and told her to call someone to get them. He blocked her number right then and there. "She's not your problem anymore," I told him. "Nope, and I seriously owe you one," he said. "You saved me from a world of trouble." We ended the call on good terms. Two guys who had dodged the same bullet. I felt a sense of closure. The plan had worked perfectly. A few days of peace went by. I was starting to feel normal again. Then, the next wave hit. Sarah's best friend, Megan, started calling me from a blocked number. I didn't answer, so she left a furious voicemail. She called me a manipulative jerk for sabotaging Sarah's happiness. She said Sarah was a wreck, crying on her couch, and that it was all my fault. She finished by saying I needed to fix it. The idea that I was supposed to clean up a mess Sarah made with two different men was just insane. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Of course, that wasn't the end of it. The next escalation was the social media campaign. Megan and Sarah started posting all this vague stuff on their stories, things like, "Some men can't handle seeing a strong woman move on," and "Beware of the toxic ex who tries to ruin your future." They didn't name me directly, but it was obvious who they were talking about. A few of our mutual friends actually bought into it. One of them, a guy named Chris, who I sometimes played poker with, texted me and said he heard I'd been acting crazy and that I should just apologize to her and let it go. I didn't argue with him. I just sent him 3 screenshots. The one where Sarah called David pathetic, the one where she laughed about his shoebox apartment, and the one where she explicitly said, "I'm just using him to make David jealous." Chris texted back about 5 minutes later. "Wow, okay. Never mind. She's nuts. Sorry, man." That was the end of the smear campaign. Facts are stubborn things. Then came the money angle. I knew it was coming. A week after she left, I started getting texts from Megan's phone, but it was obviously Sarah writing them. The first one demanded half of the security deposit for my apartment. This was laughable. I'd lived in my place for 3 years before she moved in. She had never contributed a dime to the deposit. I just replied, "You were never on the lease. This is my apartment. There is no deposit of yours to return." The next one was a threat. She claimed she'd left an expensive necklace, a family heirloom that her grandmother had given her, in my apartment. She said if I didn't return it immediately, she was calling the cops to report me for theft. This was a dumb move on her part. I remembered her bragging to Megan in a text about selling that same necklace 6 months earlier to fund a weekend trip to Vegas. I had the screenshot for that too. I texted her the picture of her own message. "Just sold grandma's necklace, lol. Vegas, here we come." Underneath it, I wrote, "You sure you want to file a false police report? Lying to the police is a serious crime." Total silence after that. For about a week, I heard nothing. I started to think it was finally over. I was wrong. The desperation was just building. And when she couldn't get to me through friends or money, she went for the nuclear option. My family. I got a call from my sister, Laura. Her tone was worried. She said she had just gotten off the phone with Sarah. Sarah had called her, crying hysterically, telling her a completely made-up story about how I had a breakdown, that I had become controlling and abusive, and that I had thrown her out on the street for no reason. She was trying to poison my own family against me. I told her she was full of it, Laura said, which was a relief, but she was convincing. She mentioned that you had been acting erratically, and that she was worried about your mental state. What is going on? I was furious. Involving my family was a low blow, even for her. I sent Laura the same 3 screenshots I had sent to Chris. There was a long pause after she read them. Then she just said, "Oh wow, she's a piece of work. Don't worry, I'll handle this." Apparently, Laura called our mom and dad and a few of our cousins and told them the real story. The family circle was secured. Sarah's attempt to paint me as the villain to the people who knew me best had backfired spectacularly. All it did was make her look even more manipulative. 2 weeks to the day after she had walked out of my life with a smirk, my doorbell rang late at night. I checked the camera. It was Sarah, and she looked like she'd been through a war. She was pale, her eyes were swollen from crying, and she was just standing there in the rain. The confident, triumphant woman from 2 weeks ago was gone. In her place was a victim, a role she was born to play. I opened the door but left the security chain on. The second she saw me, she started sobbing. "I made a mistake," she cried. "A huge mistake. I was so stupid. David meant nothing. You were the one who was always there for me, the one who was good to me. I never should have left you. It was a good performance. A year ago, it would have worked. A year ago, I was the guy who avoided confrontation and always gave people the benefit of the doubt. But that guy was gone. Sarah had killed him. "I miss you," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Please, can I just come home?" I let her question hang there in the hallway. I saw the hope in her eyes, the expectation that I would cave, that the nice guy she had taken for granted was still in there somewhere. And I watched that hope die as the seconds ticked by and I said nothing. "No, Sarah," I finally said. The word hit her like a slap. "What?" This isn't your home, I told her. And you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. A very deliberate, planned-out choice. It just didn't work out the way you wanted. The tears stopped instantly. Her face hardened. You planned this. You wanted him to see those messages. You ruined my life. I just gave him some information he deserved to have, I said. He made his own decision. Your plan was to use two different people as your personal stepping stones, and now you have no one to stand on. That's not my fault. That's on you. She just stared at me, speechless. She had run out of lies, run out of manipulations, run out of people to blame. You're only here because your plan failed, I told her. You don't want me. You want a place to land because you have nowhere else to go. But you're the one who burned the landing strip. Goodbye, Sarah. I closed the door on her shocked face and slid the deadbolt home. I could hear her start to yell, but I just walked away and put on some music. I didn't need to hear it. It was just noise. You think your proposal was romantic? My friends all laughed at how pathetic it was. My fiancé told me during our engagement party. But don't worry, I said yes, because you're stable, unlike the guys I actually enjoy sleeping with. I didn't say a word. The next morning she woke up and the ring was gone from her finger. 5 days later her lawyer was calling me, desperate to work something out. Sometimes life gives you a script straight out of a bad movie. I'm an architect, 36, own firm, decent portfolio of commercial projects. Not exactly Hollywood material, but I've built something I'm proud of. My ex-fiancée Vanessa, 32, works in PR. We met through a mutual client 3 years ago. She's the type that turns heads, smart, ambitious, social butterfly. I'm more reserved, analytical, comfortable with blueprints rather than parties. Classic opposites attract situation, or so I thought. The proposal happened at Lake Tahoe 4 months ago. I'd spent weeks planning it, rented a cabin with a view, arranged for a private chef, hired a string quartet to play as the sun set over the water. Not over the top by Instagram standards, but meaningful. I designed a custom ring with elements that represented different parts of our relationship. Architecture joke. I even calculated the perfect sightlines for photos. She said yes, smiled for the camera, posted all the right things online. Her followers ate it up. Tash blessed, I said yes, forever. The algorithm approved happiness. Fast forward to our engagement party last Saturday. Vanessa's PR firm had just landed a major client, and she was 3 glasses of champagne in, holding court with her friends in my backyard. I was at the grill, half listening to her animated storytelling when I heard my name. God, you should have seen it. She was saying, her voice carrying across the patio. Thomas thinks he's so romantic with his sunset proposal. My friends literally texted asking if I was serious when I posted the pictures. Her circle erupted in laughter. I kept flipping burgers, thinking I'd misheard. Jenny, remember when you asked why I said yes? Vanessa continued, lowering her voice slightly, but not enough. I mean, he's stable. After the disasters I've dated, stable is worth something, right? Boring in bed, but at least the bills get paid on time. More laughter. One of her friends glanced my way, quickly looked away when our eyes met. Speaking of disasters, Vanessa was on a roll now. Evan texted me last week, wants to catch up next time I'm in Chicago. The Evan? Someone asked. The one who? Yep, Vanessa grinned. Most incredible nights of my life, even if he was completely unreliable. Don't worry, I told him I'm engaged now. But I'm still going to Chicago next month for that conference. She raised her eyebrows suggestively, and her friends dissolved into giggles and shocked gasps. You are terrible, one said, not sounding like she meant it. Don't worry, I said yes because Thomas is stable, unlike the guys I actually enjoy sleeping with. I stood there, spatula frozen mid-flip, as everything crystallized. The late nights working. The trips where she'd come back with stories that didn't quite add up. The way she'd laugh at inside jokes in texts, then quickly turn her phone away. I've heard about fight or flight responses. Mine was neither. Call it architect brain, immediate shift to problem-solving mode. I finished cooking in silence, served food, made appropriate small talk with our guests. Vanessa, too caught up in her performance, didn't notice anything off. After everyone left, she was buzzing with what she called the perfect night. I cleaned up while she showered and fell into bed, still tipsy, still oblivious. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her sleep, the custom ring gleaming on her finger. She'd never bothered to ask about the specific elements I'd incorporated into the design. Why would she? It was just a prop in her social media narrative. Carefully, silently, I slipped it off her finger. She didn't stir. By morning, I was gone. Not dramatically. I didn't empty the house or leave a note. I simply took what was mine. Clothes, personal items, important documents. Used the wedding planning website we'd set up to cancel the venue reservation, photographer, and catering deposits. All paid from my account, all cancelable with partial refunds. Called my business partner to let him know I'd be working remotely for a while. Checked into a hotel downtown. Since my name was on the mortgage and deed, I kept my key. The logical part of me knew I'd need access to check on the property and eventually prepare it for sale or my return. I had no plans to just appear unannounced, though. That wasn't the point. The texts started around 10 a.m. Where are you? Where's my ring? Thomas, this isn't funny. Call me now. Are you seriously ghosting me right now? I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because I had nothing to say. What's the point in confronting someone who's shown you exactly who they are? By evening, her messages turned from angry to panicked. Thomas, please just tell me what's going on. We can talk about this. Whatever you heard was just stupid drunk talk. Please call me. My mother is asking about wedding plans. What do I tell her? The next day, her friends started reaching out. Then her sister, then her father, a retired judge who'd always treated me with thinly veiled condescension. I maintained radio silence with all of them, focusing instead on next steps. I consulted with my attorney, not about suing or anything dramatic, just ensuring I was protected. We'd purchased the condo together, though I'd contributed 70% of the down payment and made all the mortgage payments from my separate account. We had documentation for everything. No joint accounts, thankfully. On day 3, Vanessa showed up at my office. My building has secure access, standard for architecture firms with valuable intellectual property, and visitors need to check in at the lobby desk. My assistant, who'd observed enough of Vanessa's behavior over the years to form her own opinions, politely informed her I was unavailable and had left strict instructions not to be disturbed. When Vanessa tried to push past toward the elevators, the building's security officer politely but firmly escorted her to the exit. By day 4, her social media had gone dark. No explanation post, no cryptic quotes, nothing. For someone in PR, this was the digital equivalent of screaming into the void. On the morning of day 5, I received an email from Gerald Hoffman, Vanessa's father's former law partner. It was brief, professional. Regarding the matter with Miss Wilson, we would appreciate the opportunity to discuss a reasonable resolution. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. Gerald himself. Clearly uncomfortable with the assignment, but trying to maintain his professional demeanor. Thomas, I hope I'm catching you at an acceptable time. What can I do for you, Gerald? I'm calling on behalf of Vanessa. She's quite distressed about the situation. What situation would that be? A pause. Thomas, I think we both know what I'm referring to. She's informed me that you've removed yourself from the relationship without discussion and also taken the engagement ring. The ring was a conditional gift predicated on a marriage that's not going to happen, I replied, recalling the legal principle my attorney had outlined. Given the circumstances, I think we can agree the condition has failed. Yes, well, about those circumstances. Vanessa assures me there's been a misunderstanding. She's quite eager to reconcile. And... Gerald, I interrupted, let's be clear. I overheard Vanessa telling her friends that my proposal was pathetic, that she only said yes because I'm stable, and that she was planning to reconnect with a former lover during her upcoming business trip. There's no misunderstanding. Silence on the line, then a throat clearing. I see. Well, nevertheless, these matters can often be worked out through proper dialogue. Vanessa is prepared to... Is she prepared to move out of the condo? Because that's really the only matter left to resolve. Now, Thomas, that's her home. It's my home, Gerald. I paid 70% of the down payment and have made every mortgage payment from my separate account for the past 2 years. Vanessa has contributed to utilities and groceries, which hardly constitutes equity. I have all the documentation, which I'm sure you'd like to review before we proceed. Another long pause. Perhaps we could discuss some reasonable accommodation. I'm accommodating a clean break, Gerald. Vanessa has 3 weeks to find new housing. I'll continue making mortgage payments during that time. After that, she needs to be out with all her belongings. I'll have my attorney draft a formal agreement. That's rather severe, don't you think? After all, whatever you overheard was likely just... My terms aren't negotiable, Gerald. I appreciate your call. I hung up, feeling neither victory nor anger, just clarity. Vanessa moved out 19 days later. No dramatic confrontation, no tearful apologies. Her father hired movers. I made sure to be at the office. The ring, it's in my safe. Not because I'm sentimental or plan to reuse it. It simply serves as a reminder that architecture isn't just about what you build. It's also about what you're willing to tear down when the foundation is compromised. As for the revenge some might expect, the public humiliation, the social media takedown, the scorched earth, none of that happened. I didn't need it. The truth is, the most devastating response to someone who treats you as disposable is to simply dispose of them efficiently, without drama, without leaving them any narrative where they're the victim or the villain. Just irrelevant. It's been 3 months now. Vanessa has posted vague, introspective captions about growth and new chapters. Her Chicago trip mysteriously never happened. I focused on work, landed 2 major projects, started climbing again. Life continues, redesigned. Edit, thanks for all the comments and support. Some responses to common questions. Yes, I could technically sue for the full value of the condo given the documentation. I chose not to because prolonged legal battles cost time and energy that are better invested elsewhere. The clean break was worth more to me than the money. No, I haven't heard from Evan in Chicago. Don't care to. Whatever their history or future, it's not my concern anymore. For those suggesting I should have confronted her immediately at the party, why? To what end? Some situations don't need confrontation, they need conclusion. Regarding her social media, apparently she's dating someone new already. A finance guy with a boat. Good for them. Several people have asked if I'm dating again. Not yet. Taking time to recalibrate. When your blueprint for the future suddenly changes, you don't immediately start a new project without proper planning. Update. 6 months later, life has settled into a new rhythm. Signed the paperwork to open a second office in Seattle. The condo sold for a healthy profit. As for Vanessa, heard through mutual friends that the boat guy didn't work out. She sent me a long email last month about closure and growth and regrets. I read it, acknowledged receipt, didn't respond further. Some designs don't need revisions, they just need to be filed away. After 15 years of marriage, I found their secret phone. The texts revealed my wife and my brother had been sleeping together since our wedding day. They called me clueless and the perfect cover. I printed everything and delivered copies at Thanksgiving dinner. Look, you don't know me. I'm just a regular guy who worked his ass off, played by the rules, and got screwed anyway. Not looking for sympathy or advice, just need to get this off my chest. I've spent 15 years driving trucks for a living, not glamorous, but it paid the bills. Gave my wife Linda the 2-story colonial she wanted. Paid for the vacations she posted all over Facebook. Funded the girls' trips she took twice a year. My brother Frank? Corporate type. MBA from state, drives a BMW. Lives in one of those fancy high-rise condos downtown. Always been the successful one in our family's eyes. Mom still brags about him at her church group. Still has his college graduation photo on the mantle. Me? I was just the blue-collar disappointment with grease under my fingernails. When I met Linda back in '07, I couldn't believe my luck. Smart, beautiful, funny, way out of my league. When she agreed to marry me, I figured I'd won life's lottery. Frank was my best man. Gave this big emotional speech at our wedding about brotherhood and loyalty. Fricking joke. For 15 years I thought we had a decent marriage. Not perfect. What marriage is? But solid. Linda seemed content enough. Sex was routine, but regular. We'd settled into a comfortable life. I was on the road 3 to 4 days a week, home the rest. It worked for us. Or so I thought. The discovery wasn't some dramatic moment of caught in the act or lipstick on the collar bullshit. It was something so goddamn stupid and random that sometimes I still can't believe it happened. I was cleaning out the garage last August. Linda was at her sister's for the weekend. Just organizing, throwing out junk, typical weekend project. Behind a stack of Christmas decorations, I found this old toolbox I hadn't used in years. Figured I'd see what was inside before tossing it. Tools, screws, batteries, and underneath it all, an iPhone. Old model, but not ancient. Definitely not mine. I assumed it was Linda's old phone she'd forgotten about. I plugged it in, not expecting much. Dead as a doornail, of course. Left it charging while I continued cleaning. Checked it a couple hours later, battery had enough juice to power up. No passcode, which struck me as odd. Linda password protects everything. That was my first clue something was off. The phone wasn't ancient. Maybe 3 to 4 years old. Turned out it was their dedicated affair phone. Not their main devices. They'd apparently stashed it away when they upgraded to a new burner about a year ago, based on the timestamps of the last messages. Opened the text messages out of idle curiosity. Saw a conversation with someone saved as F. First text I read, "He's on the road again. Come over tonight." My stomach dropped. Started scrolling up. Hundreds of messages going back years. My wife and this F planning meetups. Explicit descriptions of what they'd done together. Photos I'll never be able to unsee. Then I saw messages referencing me. Clueless as usual. Poor Mike has no idea. His trucking schedule makes this too easy. The perfect cover. It got worse. References to meetings during our anniversary dinner when I went to the bathroom. Times they'd been together while I was in the next room, sleeping. A particular gut punch. Still can't believe we did it the night before his wedding. Best man, indeed. That's when I knew. F equals Frank, my brother, my fricking brother. I sat in that garage for hours, reading every message, looking at every photo, absorbing every detail of their betrayal. 15 years. 15 years. Since literally the day before our wedding. I'm not a violent man, never been in a real fight, but in that moment I understood how people commit murder. The rage was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Primal. But I didn't want a quick explosion of revenge. I wanted something that would destroy them as thoroughly as they destroyed me. So I got smart. I got methodical. I got freaking surgical about it. First, I charged that phone fully and backed up everything to the cloud. Then I put it exactly back where I found it. Linda came home, never suspected a thing. I acted normal, kissed her hello, asked about her sister. Watched TV together, slept beside her. Meanwhile, my mind was working overtime. I needed more evidence, needed to understand the full scope. So I started digging, checked our phone records. Thousands of calls between them over the years. Always when I was on the road. Installed a tracker on her car. Every time I left for work, she'd go to his condo, set up a hidden camera in our bedroom. The footage confirmed everything. They weren't even subtle about it. They'd been doing this so long they'd gotten sloppy. I gathered evidence for 2 months. Every text, every photo, every video, every call log. Organized it all chronologically, meticulously. Created a detailed timeline of their affair, from the night before our wedding through the present. I wasn't stupid about it. Consulted with my lawyer about what evidence I could legally gather and use. She advised me to focus on text messages, call logs, and location data rather than recording audio or video without consent. I hired a private investigator who documented their meetups legally. Photos of them entering and leaving Frank's building together, meeting at restaurants when I was supposedly out of town, that kind of thing. All obtained legally from public locations. No bedroom spying, no illegal wiretapping. Didn't need it. Their digital trail and the PI's documentation provided more than enough evidence. Thanksgiving was approaching. Linda had insisted, as always, that we host. My parents, her sister and brother-in-law, and of course Frank. All around our dining table, eating the turkey I paid for in the house I paid for, while the wife and brother I paid for exchanged secret glances. The day before Thanksgiving, I finalized my preparations. Printed everything out, hundreds of pages of texts, call logs, and timeline evidence. Made individual packets for each dinner guest, each in a sealed manila envelope, with their name neatly printed on the front. Important note, I wasn't stupid enough to include any explicit photos in these packets. My lawyer had specifically warned me about potential legal issues with distributing such material, even to family members. Instead, I included text conversations that described their relationship, timestamped logs of their meetings, and the PI's photos of them entering Frank's building together. All legally obtained, all damning enough without crossing any lines. Frank and Linda's packages were thicker, containing more detailed evidence of their betrayal, but still nothing that could violate any revenge porn laws. Then I wrote a separate letter to Linda and Frank. Detailed, specific, cold. Explained exactly what they had done to me, how they had stolen 15 years of my life, how they had made a fool of me, how they had betrayed not just me, but our entire family. No cursing, no threats, just brutal, unemotional truth. Thanksgiving Day. Everyone arrived. Linda was playing perfect hostess. Frank brought expensive wine, charming as always. My mother hugged him longer than me, as usual. We all sat down to dinner. Linda had outdone herself. Turkey, stuffing, 5 different sides, homemade rolls. Everyone was complimenting her, enjoying the food, sharing stories. I waited until they were all served, all comfortable. Then I stood up, ostensibly to make a toast, raised my glass, thanked everyone for coming, said I had something to share with each of them. Before we give thanks, I've prepared something for each of you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I retrieved the stack of envelopes from the side table and distributed them around the table. Please don't open them yet. I'll tell you when. Linda looked confused but not concerned. Frank appeared slightly more wary. He knew me well enough to sense something wasn't right. 15 years ago, I married the woman I loved, I continued. My brother stood beside me as my best man. For 15 years, I believed I had a faithful wife and a loyal brother. I was wrong. The room got very quiet. Linda's face changed. Frank set down his fork. The envelopes in front of you contain evidence of a 15-year affair between my wife and my brother. Texts, photos, and a detailed timeline. Their own words describe me as clueless, and their arrangement as the perfect cover. Open them if you want the details, or don't. Either way, I'm done. Chaos erupted. Linda jumped up, tried to grab the envelopes. Frank lunged across the table toward me. Parents started shouting questions. Linda's sister just sat there, envelope unopened, staring at Linda with dawning comprehension. I remained perfectly calm, watching it all unfold. Linda was screaming that I'd violated her privacy. Frank was calling me mentally unstable. My mother started crying. Linda's father, a quiet man I'd always respected, opened his envelope first, read a few pages, looked up at Linda with such profound disappointment that she stopped mid-sentence. "Is this true?" he asked her. Just those 3 words. Her response, "You don't understand." That's when Frank's envelope was opened by his girlfriend, a woman he'd been stringing along for 3 years while sleeping with my wife. She started reading aloud some of their more explicit messages. Dates when Frank had told her he was working late but was actually with Linda. The night he'd missed her birthday dinner because of a family emergency. I walked out while they were all still shouting. Got in my truck, drove to the new apartment I'd rented the week before, already furnished with the possessions that mattered to me. Poured myself a whiskey and waited. The fallout was biblical. Linda's family disowned her. My parents couldn't look Frank in the eye. He lost his girlfriend, obviously. Several of Linda's messages had mentioned meetings at his workplace after hours. When his girlfriend, furious after reading the evidence, confronted him loudly in his office lobby, his coworkers and management witnessed the whole scene. This very public confrontation, not any direct action from me, led to an internal investigation about company facility misuse. Frank was fired within a week. Linda tried everything: tears, threats, seduction, legal action. None of it worked. The evidence was too overwhelming, my preparation too thorough. The divorce was finalized in record time. She got less than she expected, way less than she wanted. The alienation of affection lawsuit against Frank wiped out his savings. I lost my wife, my brother, and what I thought was my life. But I gained something more important, my self-respect. It's been 8 months. I did leave the trucking company, but not to retire. Started my own logistics consulting business. Turns out all those years on the road taught me things corporate types like Frank never learn. Business is good. Bought myself a smaller house in a different neighborhood. Been on a few dates, nothing serious. Linda and Frank are together now, officially. Living in a 1-bedroom apartment because neither of them can afford anything better. Frank's working as a sales associate at an electronics store. Linda's hostessing at a chain restaurant. They look miserable in their Facebook photos. Good. My only regret is the collateral damage. Parents who lost their illusions, in-laws who lost their daughter, Innocent parties who had to witness the ugly truth. But secrets and lies have a way of poisoning everything around them. The truth may have hurt, but the lie was killing me one day at a time. So that's my story. Not pretty, not dignified, but mine. If there's a lesson here, maybe it's this. Even a clueless man has his breaking point. Even a perfect cover eventually gets blown. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth, it's making damn sure everyone has to face it at exactly the same moment, with nowhere to hide. Jesus, this blew up overnight. Thanks for the support. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, I gave copies to everyone at dinner, including my parents and in-laws. Harsh? Maybe. But after 15 years of being the only one not in on the joke, I wanted everyone to know exactly what had been happening. No more secrets, no more hiding. 2. My folks are speaking to Frank again. Limited contact. Can't say I'm thrilled about it, but they're in their 70s. Told them I won't attend any family function where he's present. They're respecting that so far. 3. Some asked why I didn't just divorce quietly instead of causing a scene. Because quiet divorces let people control the narrative. Linda and Frank would have spun a story that made them look better, me look worse. Nope. Everyone got the unvarnished truth, not their sanitized version. 4. About Linda's "you violated my privacy" reaction. Classic cheater response, focusing on how they got caught rather than what they did. Textbook deflection. 5. For legal questions. Yes, alienation of affection lawsuits are still valid in some states. Yes, I consulted multiple lawyers before acting. Everything I did was legal, if not particularly nice. Update, 1 year later. Time flies when you're rebuilding your life. Business has expanded, hired 2 employees, looking for a third. Moved into a new house last month, one I chose for myself rather than to please someone else. Even adopted a dog from the